One Piece Season 2 is finally here, and honestly, the first few episodes surprised me. Not just because they look bigger and more ambitious than Season 1, but because the show makes some really interesting changes compared to the original story by Ichiro Oda. Some of these changes actually work incredibly well for a live-action series. Today I want to talk about three things. First, why the conversation between Gold D. Roger and Monkey D. Garp is such a brilliant way to start the season. Second, why Episode 4 might be one of the most interesting episodes so far, especially because of the references to the Sun God, the Winter Solstice Festival, and the deeper lore. Third, why Episode 5 felt a bit weaker overall, but still had some fantastic moments, especially Sanji's fight and the final attack from the Giants. And finally, I want to talk about one thing that didn't work for me, the portrayal of Monkey D. Dragon. So let's break it down. One of the strongest scenes right at the beginning of the season is the flashback between Gold D. Roger and Monkey D. Garp. What makes this scene so interesting is that in the manga, this part of the story becomes relevant much later. But the live-action adaptation decides to show this moment much earlier. And honestly, that's a brilliant decision. In this scene, Roger asks Garp to take care of his child. This immediately changes how we view both characters. Roger and Garp are supposed to be enemies. One is the king of the pirates, and the other is one of the most legendary marines in the world. But despite that, there's clearly a deep level of respect between them. Roger trusts Garp with the most important thing in his life, his own child. And that tells us a lot about both characters. It shows that Garp is not just a marine blindly following orders. He's someone with his own sense of justice and morality. And introducing this moment early in the series is incredibly smart, because it immediately creates a huge mystery. Who is Roger's child? Why does Roger trust Garp of all people? And how will this secret affect the future of the story? For a TV series, setting up this emotional and narrative tension early is a very strong storytelling choice. Another episode that really stood out to me was Episode 4. What I like most about this episode is how it introduces several small pieces of lore that feel like major foreshadowing. One of the most interesting mentions is the Sun God. In One Piece, references to mythology or ancient beliefs are almost never random. Ichiro Oda is famous for planting story elements hundreds of chapters before they become important. So hearing about something like the Sun God immediately makes you wonder if this is setting up something bigger later in the story. Then we also hear about the Winter Solstice Festival. This kind of cultural detail might seem small, but it actually does a lot for the world building. It makes the world feel older and more alive. You get the sense that every island has its own traditions, myths, and history. And that's one of the things that makes the world of One Piece feel so unique. It's not just about pirates and fights. It's about a massive world filled with legends, mysteries, and forgotten history. And Episode 4 captures that feeling really well. Now let's talk about Episode 5. Personally, I think this episode was a bit weaker than the previous ones. The pacing felt a little slower, and the story didn't feel quite as focused. But even though the episode had some weaker moments, it also had some really great scenes. One of them is Sanji's fight against the two giant animals. This scene works really well because it highlights Sanji's unique fighting style. Unlike many other fighters in the series, Sanji only uses his legs. And the choreography of the fight really shows how fast, elegant, and powerful his kicks are. It's stylish, it's dynamic, and it feels very true to the character. But the real highlight of the episode happens near the end. The moment when the Giants launch their combined attack. Dory and Broggy are legendary warriors, and their attack finally shows just how powerful giants from Elbaf can be. The scale of the attack feels enormous. It almost feels like a natural disaster rather than a normal attack. And visually, it's one of the most impressive moments in the season so far. Scenes like this really show the potential of the live-action adaptation when it comes to scale and spectacle. But there is one element of the season that didn't work for me, and that's the portrayal of Monkey D. Dragon. In the original story, Dragon is one of the most mysterious and intimidating characters in the entire world of One Piece. Whenever he appears, there's an immediate sense that this is someone extremely important, someone powerful, someone who could change the fate of the world. But in the live-action version, I didn't quite feel that same impact. The character feels a bit too reserved, and the scene doesn't create the same sense of presence that Dragon usually has. Maybe it's because his screen time is still very limited, or maybe it's just the way the scene was directed. But so far, Dragon hasn't felt as powerful or as mysterious as he should. Hopefully the show will develop his character more in future seasons, because Dragon is a huge part of the larger story. Another thing that bugs me a little bit is Chopper's face in the human form. Reminds me a little bit of Appa in the live-action movie about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Overall though, I think Season 2 is off to a really strong start. The show expands the world of One Piece, introduces deeper lore, and makes some clever changes that work well for a live-action format. Especially moments like the conversation between Roger and Garp show that the writers understand how to restructure the story for television. And so far, that approach seems to be working. I'm really curious to see how the rest of the season develops. But now I want to hear your thoughts. What has been your favourite moment from Season 2 so far? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more One Piece discussions and analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.